Welcome to the Tailgate Debate. You're here with Anthony, Zach, Jamie, and Earl.
All right, what's up, fellas? So we are here, almost done week one. So transparency for all of our listeners out there. We record on Sunday night to put it out on Monday. So the games that we won't be able to review, the college games are LSU and Clemson. LSU plays tonight still, Clemson tomorrow night. So we did our picks last week. And so far from the games we picked, I am 7-1, Earl 6-2, Zach 5-3, and Jamie 4-4. So it looks like I am smashing you guys, I am going to smash you guys because we all have the same picks for the last two games. We all have LSU and Clemson. So I guess what we can start with tonight is just some of the games that we selected, and then we'll go through some of the other matchups that we didn't think were a big deal, but as the college Saturday unfolded, there was some craziness, I thought. So why don't we look Tennessee? I mean, we can start there just because it's pretty quick. I mean, I didn't get to see a lot from Tennessee. The defense has me a little bit nervous, and Hooker was a little bit off on a couple of throws. I mean, Tennessee won the game 59-10, but again, it was against Ball State. I don't think we got a lot of information. Some things I thought that we could definitely work on and clean up, but overall, it was a good game, but certainly not as clean a game as it could have been. So we'll see what they get cleaned up before Pitt. All in all, I thought it was, a B performance. They did what they should have done, but couple things could be a little bit better. That's where I'm at with the Tennessee game. You guys got anything on that?
I mean, we'll know more this weekend when we play Pitt. So the Ball State was kind of a throwaway game for me.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you really learn too much from a game like that, unless you obviously don't play well. But you guys played fine, and Hooker, he looked fine for the most part. There were a couple of throws that he missed, but like Zach said, next week is a game that you'll get a little bit more feedback and kind of know where you stand overall.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. We did what we should have done, and there's definitely some things to clean up, but it's just not a game that we need to spend a lot of time on. I'm glad we're 1-0, but the real season starts this Saturday with Pitt. So I agree with you guys. So you want to start with the marquee game this weekend, or do you want to work our way towards that? We can start with Pitt, West Virginia, which was a great game on Thursday night, or we can start with Notre Dame, Ohio State. That was the biggest game of the week.
Let's go through the other games and leave Ohio State and Notre Dame for last, because I'm probably going to talk a good bit on that.
You still got a lot to say about that?
I do.
Okay, I got a lot to say too, so that's good. All right, let's go to Pitt, West Virginia. That was the Thursday night ESPN game, which used to be the kickoff game for the football season. I thought it was a really good game. It was a competitive game. I thought both teams did not look very sharp in the first half. We were texting with each other, and I think we were all kind of saying both these teams are just not very good. But I thought in the second half, both teams looked much better. They were playing pretty physical. The game was a little cleaner. So the quarterbacks were making some plays. They were running the ball pretty well. I actually thought it was a good second half. And I thought both teams looked okay. I mean, Pitt kind of looked like I thought they would look. I think they're a decent team. I know you guys were shitting on them pretty good, but I don't see it. I think they're definitely a decent team. A team that we should beat, but I think it'll be a game this Saturday. So I thought it was a good game, a good way to kick off the season. What do you guys think?
Well, when you say we, you mean Tennessee. And also,
yeah,
that fucking receiver should be cut. That shit was pitiful. That cost them the game.
2 touchdowns. Like, he was a big part of their success. I mean, he obviously, that drop lost them the game ultimately, but he was one of their best receivers the entire game.
And that shit hit him in the face.
It didn't hit him in the hands, but it's a brutal.
That might be worse.
It's a brutal drop, man. I mean, it's one of those things. Like, it's playing basketball. It's happened 1,000 times, and sometimes you go to catch the ball and it literally just goes through your hands. It's just one of those things that happens. It's inexplicable, and it's unfortunate that it happened at that point in the game. I'm not going to beat the guy up for that.
That was the
game-changing play.
Well, it wasn't just a drop either. It was a drop that turned into a pick six that changed the entire game and won the game for Pitt.
I know. I'm not a Pitt fan. I'm not defending them. I'm saying I'm not going to beat the guy up for it. He had a good game. It was unfortunate. That's all there's to it.
I think all that's negated. Like, yeah, he did have a good game, and he was responsible for 2 touchdowns. But a play like that that's all people are going to be talking about. Nobody cares about the 2 touchdowns that you had. You made a bonehead play that cost your team.
Yeah, and that was a first down catch, and he turned the game around in the wrong direction. But even
Yeah.
aside from that, I thought both teams looked small. I thought they looked slow. And after the shit we saw from the ACC this weekend, it's
I
expected. Like the ACC as a whole looks like absolute dog shit.
I wasn't impressed with either team. I thought West Virginia started the game. I know they have a new coach, but they looked undisciplined and very unorganized. I thought that Pitt was the better team and probably should have won the game. But West Virginia definitely had numerous chances to put the game away, and they just didn't. So there was a play where they could have went for it on 4th and 1, which I thought the right call would have been to go for it. They had that big running back that apparently is actually a tight end, but they're playing him at running back. He was breaking big runs all night, and he was huge. He definitely could have got you a yard. You get a yard there, you kind of put the game away. Instead, they punt, and then obviously Pitt ties the game up, and then Pitt goes ahead with the pick 6, and they just unravel from there.
Yeah, I think you guys are underestimating or certainly underemphasizing that it was the first game of the season. I thought both teams played for the first game. I thought it was a competitive game. I thought it was a good game. I don't know that the way Pitt plays is an indication of how bad the ACC is. I do think how bad North Carolina and NC State, how bad they played is an indication of how bad the ACC might be.
Virginia Tech.
Oh, Virginia Tech, we can't forget about them. Let's get to those guys in a minute because that was brutal. But yeah, I thought the Pitt game was a really good game. I thought it was a great way to kick off the season, very competitive. And those guys were playing physical. They were hitting. I mean, I thought it was a pretty good game. I do think we should win Tennessee. When I say we, I mean Tennessee. I do think we should win, but I liked it. You guys, I'm going to give them more credit than you guys are giving them. What do you guys think?
I just want to, like, the thing with Pitt is before their first game, I wasn't big on Slovis, the transfer quarterback from USC, and then watching him in the first game, I just felt like that was confirmed. He's not a good quarterback. His arm's not very strong. And then Pitt, I didn't notice any real like skill player that stood out to me. They had number 6 running the ball, and he was doing a pretty good job. But I don't even know if he's their starting running back because once the second half started, he was on the sideline. They had someone else running the ball. It was very weird. So I just wasn't very impressed with Pitt. I think they're both pretty average teams.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of, it was a good game to watch, but I think if Tennessee doesn't beat them by at least 10 this weekend, it's going to be a long year in the SEC. So,
and that's what I would say. Like, I don't think Pitt's a bad team. I don't really think they're a great team either. They're kind of an average team, and I think it will tell a lot what Tennessee does. I think it's got to be at least a 2-score game for you guys to be optimistic about having a good season this year. Because if it's a close game or if you lose, it's concerning.
I would agree with that. I think it's a good way to wrap it up. Yeah, we don't see it quite eye to eye, but I do agree with the assessment on what Tennessee needs to do in order to kind of kick this season off in the right direction. Some of the other games that we had on our picks, we had Penn State. They looked okay. They pulled it out. Maryland, they were underwhelming. I picked them actually to cover the spread, and they did not. So I wasn't very impressed with Maryland. I don't know if you guys.
I mean, 17 fucking points at half against Buffalo. Are you kidding me?
It was 17-7, right? Buffalo scored a touchdown.
Yeah, I should have known we weren't going to be able to skate past Maryland. Yeah, I was talking to a Maryland fan today, and I said, "What'd you think about the team?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, we're not very good." So I think the real Maryland fans are realistic that they're just not good. I mean,
thank God there's only 10 of them. So.
Are they checking out? Are they checking out before week 4? Usually they make it to at least week 4, and then once they lose, they stop paying attention.
Well, I think they all get excited when they're 3-0. I think they forget that they do this every year. So yeah,
they can't wait for Rutgers.
Rutgers might be competitive this year.
Rutgers beat BC.
I know.
Yeah. So that's not a gimme anymore. I don't know. I don't really care to talk about Maryland because I don't like the Big Ten that much, and I definitely don't like Maryland. I don't think they're very good. They were underwhelming. I thought they would definitely beat the spread against Buffalo, and they did not. The next game that we had was Georgia, Oregon. I thought
Man.
this was the most impressive game of the day in terms of a team making a statement. Oregon came in the season number 11. That's damn sure going to change. And Georgia beat the dog shit out of them. I was impressed with everything Georgia did offensively, especially defense. They looked good. The interception that corner had was amazing. They were flying around. They are definitely reloaded and not rebuilding. I don't know if they're going to go undefeated. I'm not ready to say all that. I want to see a couple games. We don't know how good Oregon is, but Georgia, I thought, was the most impressive team of the day Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a bit of both, where Oregon is not as good as people thought, but Georgia's definitely better than I thought. Their offense, I mean, they scored 7 touchdowns in the first 7 drives. Like, Stetson Bennett's bitch ass was like 25 of 31. I mean, I can't stand him, but they crushed. So, just based on this game, they have to be a favorite to be in the playoff, even if I don't think they have Alabama on their schedule this year. So, if they win the SEC East, they'll be in the playoff regardless of what they do against Bama.
Why do you not like Stetson Bennett?
He's annoying as shit. I think he's a scrub surrounded by great talent.
Yeah, I used to think that, and I've always been pretty hard on him. But after the showing against Oregon, he looked really good. He looked sharp. He made plays. He was so where last year I felt like he was successful and he won games because of the talent around him. This year he was the one making the plays. Obviously, he still has a ton of talent around him, but he was making plays. I was super impressed with him. And I was wrong about Georgia. I thought that they wouldn't be as good. Their defense is fully reloaded, and their offense is actually much better than last year.
Yeah, I think they have like 2 or 3 NFL tight ends on the roster, which is insane.
One dude is 7.
Yeah.
And he was out there hurdling dudes.
I saw that.
Their other tight end is projected first or second in the draft.
Yeah, they're a monstrous team. I mean, but for me, he is just like an average talent who's just good enough to be annoying. Like, he scrambles when he needs to and makes passes when he needs to. But he's a game manager. That's all.
I don't think so.
Plus his name is Stetson, so fuck him.
Well, last year he was a game manager. They just said, go out there and don't fuck up because we're just better than everybody. This year he was making plays. He looked good. And, like when you're saying he's annoying and shit, like I would think like, Johnny Football or Baker.
Yeah.
People would look at him and be like, this dude's an asshole. But Stetson's not like that. He's he's pretty respectful and he's very he's very humble. So
no, I don't think he's an asshole. I just think he just always escapes just enough to make a pass, and like he's annoying to play against.
Yeah, but he's basically an average. He's 5'11", and I mean he's out there balling. Like, I was impressed with him. So I'm gonna give him all kinds of credit because I've always been one to shit on him and say he isn't shit. I was impressed with him. And I think the Georgia team is, they're a contender. They are.
Yeah, they have to be a favorite for the playoffs, certainly. And assuming that them and Bama make the playoff, it'll be a rematch. So
they're an absolute contender. You guys are hard on some of these players. I think Bennett's good. If he's escaping and making the plays and that's his job.
He's making good plays. It's just annoying to watch because it's like, just sack that motherfucker.
I just went on like a 2-minute about how good he was and how I was wrong, and Zach shit on him. It's not you, it's Zach.
It's like watching Ben Roethlisberger. Like, no. he does just enough to get the pass on and make a play.
Ben Roethlisberger's out here rapist, and Stetson Bennett is just a nice guy who shows up and makes plays. And you're comparing the two?
I'm not comparing their off the field behavior.
What did Stetson do to you? Like, that's personal.
I'm just saying he does just enough to make good plays. So yeah, he's solid. I'm not going to take that away from him. It's just annoying to watch. That's all.
I'm not going to put a Ben Roethlisberger tag on him. That's bullshit.
No way. Ben
Roethlisberger is a piece of shit, man.
I didn't say he was hanging out in fucking bathroom stalls. I said he's annoying.
No. So I like him. I think he's a good quarterback. He does what he needs to do. He gets the job done. I agree with Jamie. The interviews, I don't have an issue with anything he says. It seems like he carries himself well. He's a good quarterback. It is annoying that he's good and we got to play against him every year, but that's the way it goes. I think he's good. He had a great game yesterday. I'm not convinced that that's the new, the new Georgia way is to come out and just, blow people out like that. I mean, we're gonna have to see a little more for all that, but I'll tell you what, is a hell of a statement yesterday. That's for sure.
That was hands down the most dominant performance of the weekend.
For sure.
Yeah. So
not even close.
absolutely. And I think everybody was ultra impressed and shocked by that outcome. But let's flip it now and talk about the team that they played, because Oregon comes in at number 11. The Pac-12 is toting Oregon, maybe USC having a better than expected year. Utah as the favorite to win the Pac-12. And so there's a lot of hype around some of these teams. We'll get to Utah in a minute, but Oregon, my understanding, was projected to be the second in the Pac-12 behind Utah, and they get shellacked 49-3. So what does that say about Oregon and the state of the Pac-12?
Well, that's why I said I think it's both. I think Oregon is going to be worse than we thought, and Georgia surprised me. And Oregon, man, if I had known they had Bo Nix at quarterback, I never would have picked them to cover the spread. The spread could have been a fucking 100. I wouldn't have picked him. He is terrible. He was a fucking bum at Auburn, and he just continued right on at Oregon.
I don't remember who the halftime guy was, but as soon as the game went to halftime, one of the announcers, I wasn't even looking at the TV, so I don't know who it was. He goes, "Have we not seen enough of the Bo Nix experiment yet? Like, can we be done with this?" It was pretty cold blooded, but look, I didn't think Bo Nix was that bad. I really didn't. I still would have picked Oregon to beat the spread. I thought the spread was crazy.
They scored 3 points and he had 2 picks.
I didn't say I would have picked them after the game was over. I said before the game, I would have picked them to beat the spread. I did not think Georgia would score that many points. I thought that Bo Nix would be, he's coming from the SEC. I would have thought that he would have had some success with a Georgia defense that just sent their whole goddamn team to the NFL. So, yeah, I still would have picked him to beat the spread. Clearly I was fucking wrong, and so was most of the people in the country. No, anybody who says they saw that outcome coming is a liar, including Georgia. I think even Georgia was surprised. They asked Kirby Smart, they said, "What do you guys, what do you think's happening?" He said, "Everybody's playing great." And he couldn't even find anything negative to say. So they were clicking on all cylinders. And it was one of those games that I don't know. Oregon just ran into something. If that's the way Georgia looks all year, they're cruising to the SEC title to compete with Alabama. The season's going to be a walk because they looked unstoppable yesterday. But again, it's just the first game. I don't think anybody should overreact. Just give them their props for what they did. They took care of business, and good for them. But they still got to fucking play us in a few weeks. So let's not forget that shit either. When I say us, I mean Tennessee.
It's one game. I wouldn't go crazy with it, but they were the most impressive performance of the weekend. So for now, that's all we have to go off of. Hands
down. And Oregon, I think Oregon has to be listed as the biggest letdown of the weekend. I think they have to. And where that goes is,
we can have that conversation later.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, they're my pick for the biggest letdown of the weekend. There's some other teams that stink, but we'll get to them. But Oregon for number 11 projection, the way that they looked and the way they got beat was embarrassing. And they were the absolute, by far, biggest letdown of the weekend for me.
Yeah, I just want to say that I knew that Bo Nix transferred to Oregon. I didn't realize he won the starting job. So if I would have known that, I picked Georgia to win. I obviously didn't think Georgia was going to score that many points.
Right.
Bo Nix has always been bad. So even what I seen at Auburn, there's a reason why he transferred from Auburn, and Auburn still doesn't have a good quarterback. It isn't like he got beat out by somebody. They were done with his ass. He was looking for another opportunity somewhere else to start. So the Bo Nix shit, he shouldn't be a starting quarterback anywhere, not Power 5.
Well, he might not be after that performance.
No one's going to blame him for that. But yeah, he's 0-4 against Georgia, so we can all take solace in that, I guess.
That doesn't make a bad quarterback. Everybody kept on TV kept saying that, like, he hasn't beaten Georgia yet. Georgia's a good fucking team.
Auburn was a good team when he was there. He fucking dragged him down.
Peyton Manning never beat Florida, but he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. It doesn't mean you're a bad quarterback. That's a bad stat. But clearly he's not a good quarterback. I'm not trying to defend him.
I think they say that stat because there's also many other stats that prove that he's not a great quarterback.
Yeah.
So the Georgia stat came up because they were playing Georgia, and clearly he didn't beat him again.
He's a bust. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. So
Yeah, I mean, but listen, we've already seen the game, so I'm not going to sit here and argue about it. I'm just saying, had I known before the game, I still would have picked Oregon to cover, and I would have thought that he would have had a better game with SEC experience, with an Oregon team that I would have thought would have been pretty fast, pretty skilled. I would have thought that it would have been, kind of tailor made for him to do some little short passes and keep the ball safe from turnovers. But now that I've watched the game, yeah, I agree, he sucks. Okay, so
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure the motherfucker's colorblind because he was hitting Georgia like they were his receivers. I mean, that second pick was bad. The safety was just standing there, and he threw this shit right into his chest.
Yeah, the second pick was pretty bad. The safety jumped the route, and he was staring at the defender the whole time. The first pick was a great play by the corner. I mean, he put the ball up in play for his receiver, and the corner just made a great play on the ball.
It was, and I think that one, it wasn't a good pass. It wasn't going to be complete no matter what, I don't think. But that was a hell of an interception. You got to give the corner credit for that one. You're right. The one that the safety picks is, I mean, that's amateur hour. I mean, that's just can't happen at that level, I don't think. But it does. I mean, there's still college quarterbacks. Look, Bo Nix sucks. I mean, we don't need to talk about him too much more, I don't think. His career is probably over. Oregon season is most certainly over. I mean, I guess they'll still let them play the rest of their schedule, but for what? I mean, they still cruising on their motorcycle at the House of Loud or whatever they call themselves these days. What do they call it? You remember when they said they were going to name the stadium House of Loud, and some ESPN commentators like they need to call it House of Stupid. Do you guys remember that shit?
No.
They never even. I think they heard it and never even used the name.
It sounds like you made that story up.
No, I swear to God that happened. It was on TV. I don't remember who it was, but it was. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, that is stupid as shit. The House of Loud, so dumb. Anyway, so that was the most impressive and most unimpressive performances in one game. The next game that we actually were not split on, I had Florida, and the rest of you idiots took Utah. Everybody claimed that they knew that Utah was going to be good, and they had the front seven is going to be, I think it was Earl. Earl's not on here. He can listen to it. I don't think Florida's going to be able to hang with their front seven. I don't think you idiots have ever seen their front seven. But anyway, Florida comes in unranked. Utah comes in as the favorite to win the Pac-12. And we can play the previous podcast back if you guys forget how much you pumped up Utah. And Florida did kind of what I thought they would do. They had more talent on the field. They were physical. The home field advantage was a real thing. And Utah comes in overhyped, overrated, as I kind of expected. And Florida beat them. And you want to talk about a bad pass? Let's talk about the pass in that game where the Utah quarterback.
Well, hold on. Before you go into that,
yeah.
Saying that Utah was dominated or something, they stepped on their own dick repeatedly. That fucking goal line stand was obscene. The guy went to hand the ball off and tripped over himself.
Hold on. Did you say that's true? He said they stepped on their own dick repeatedly, and you said that's true?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure that's the comment that you're like, yep, that's what happened. All right. They stepped on their dick repeatedly. That's true.
You got first and goal. The running back trips over himself. And then you have a chance to take the lead or tie it with 20 seconds. In that situation, 20 seconds left, no timeouts, second down, you should be throwing two passes that are either touchdowns or out of bounds. That's it. Their coach was fucking stupid, and their players were fucking stupid. So that sums up that whole fucking game to me. I mean, they pissed the game away.
Yeah, I think it's completely fair to pregame pick Utah to win that game, because I think Florida looked better than what everybody expected, right? And
yeah,
I mean the game, I wasn't expecting much from Florida, and the quarterback, he made plays, and you can tell they still have a ton of talent. I just think Utah didn't show up. They didn't capitalize on their opportunities, and Florida ultimately won the game. The interception on second and goal, that's a bad throw to make second and goal. You still have two more chances to score the ball, to throw the ball across the middle of the field.
They didn't even need a touchdown. They could have kicked a field goal to tie it for overtime.
Yeah, it was just a bad decision making. So they blew the game.
Well, and I think this is one of those situations, and this is the only thing that bothers me with this kind of like post game analysis is people say, and I do agree, you're in position to get the field goal, so you got to be a little bit smarter. But if they play conservative, run it up the middle, kick a field goal, go to overtime, lose, everyone in the world says they were on the 3-yard line. They needed to try to score. There was no reason to go that conservative. They end up getting completely ripped for the opposite, for being ultra conservative. I mean, I do think they were safer pass plays they could have made and still try to be aggressive and score a touchdown. The play call, I don't know what the number one receiver was, what was intended, but the receiver that he threw it to, and this is what I was getting ready to go to when you guys cut me off, you bastards, was the receiver that he tried to throw the ball to had fallen down. He didn't throw it and then the receiver fell. When he threw the ball, the receiver was sitting on the ground. So I have no idea why you try to squeeze the ball into the middle of the end zone where all the defenders were there to a receiver who's on his ass. It was the dumbest decision. One of the dumbest decisions of the day yesterday that I saw. I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, what the fuck are you even throwing it to? The guy's on the ground. Like, just throw it away at that point. If he was your go-to, just throw it away. He's falling down. He's out of the play.
Yeah, I'm not judging the call based on hindsight. I'm saying that in general, 20 seconds, no timeouts, you can't run the ball. You're at the 6-yard line. The throws should be fades or back of the end zone, high, where only the tight end can catch type thing.
I agree.
So the fact that the coach even put the quarterback in that position is stupid. And the quarterback for throwing that pass is a fucking idiot. So
yeah, it's a bad decision. And like Anthony said, maybe the first read wasn't that throw, but still to make that throw on second down.
Yeah.
Stupid. Like, if you don't have anything, just throw it out of the end zone and play for third down. And like you said, they still could have kicked a field goal on fourth to tie. So just bad execution all around.
Yeah, that makes it so much worse to me, is that they could have tied. This wasn't like a do or die moment. Like, to me, this is a moment where you can play it a little bit conservative. Hopefully you get the win. But if you don't, you take it to overtime. I mean, they were running the ball down Florida's throat the whole second half because they had just worn down their defense with the run game.
Yeah.
So this isn't like you're desperate, you need to score. This is, try to win, but don't fuck it up. And they fucked it up.
Yeah, I mean, they were being aggressive. I don't agree with the decision of the play. I just don't. I'm not going to argue that point. And it's really not a hindsight thing. It really was just an incredible. Even if the receiver catches it while he's sitting on his ass, you're wondering, like, what the hell, man? Like, he threw it to a guy sitting down. It's one of those things where if he makes the throw, they're going to say, "Oh, that's an incredible throw." He puts it, the guy sitting down. He still puts it in his chest. Once the receiver's falling down, like he's not the target anymore. It's weird. The decision is weird, and at best, he should have just tried to skip it off the ground, throw the incomplete, stop the ball. The receiver's in the area. You don't have to worry about grounding and just move on to the next play. I just don't understand it. And we don't know what the play call. Well, we don't know where he was intended to go with the ball. It could have been something that was a little safer, that was covered, and then the quarterback just fucking had a brain freeze and just tried to make a play that wasn't there. I mean, quarterbacks do it.
If the receiver fell, throw the shit through the uprights.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, just skip it. The receiver, there's a receiver in the area. You don't have to worry. I mean, just it's strange because an incomplete stops the clock. You got time to regroup and make a decision. I do agree. I'm 100% in favor of the fade. I mean, the fade is almost, if you have a big enough receiver, it's not going to be picked. So at worst, it's just an incomplete. It's really, and that's the reason teams do it over and over and over and over and over.
Or even a pass interference.
Yeah. So that it's just that there are definitely safer options. Even that tight end over the middle, I think that close to the end zone, I don't think that's a safe play either. That's unless they're just in a straight up goal line and expecting to run, but that's that can get a little congested too. I think the fade's the only way to go there. But I'm not a football coach. I'm just saying we watch teams do it over and over for a reason.
I mean, to me, that's one of those where they always say, even the commentators, like, just throw the ball at the upright, and if the tight end doesn't catch it, it's out of bounds. Like, it should be a safe pass. And if we want to talk about the bigger picture here, I don't know if we want to get into that yet, but
yeah, go ahead. Unless you guys got more that you want to talk about the shit on this quarterback and them stepping on their dicks. I don't know.
well, I mean, he looked like he stepped right off of his skateboard onto his own dick. So,
What's a skateboard got to do with it?
he looks like a skateboarder.
Yeah, the long.
I didn't see him. I didn't see him without the helmet on.
He looked like a total stoner, but
He had a pretty good game though.
He's a good quarterback.
Yeah,
He is a good quarterback. I think the moment was just too big for Utah, which I mean, I guess the Swamp, obviously the Swamp is a hard place to play, but Florida's not they're not a great team, right? Like they might be better than people expected, but people aren't expecting much from Florida this year. They just shit their pants.
Yep.
And stomped on their own dick.
yeah, but besides them stepping on their own dick, I mean, I don't know how you guys can continually. You guys know I hate, as a Tennessee fan, I hate Florida. But they keep talent on the roster. I mean, to say that nobody's expecting much from them, I agree. But when you say you're not expecting much from them, it's not like they're going to roll out a bunch of scrubs. They're still rolling out talent onto the field. You're still talking about SEC level talent, a team that's been good, for the last 30 years, for the better part of the last 30 years. They didn't all of a sudden have all the talent didn't go away, didn't disappear. Yes, the coach has to do his job. It is a turnover. There's a transition. They're not going to win the national title. They're not going to be in the playoff, but they're not some scrubs. I mean, they're going to be in games and they're going to win games. And listen, they play Kentucky next week, and I'm picking them to win that fucking game too. So everybody thinking that Florida was just going to completely fall apart because they had a shitty season last season with a coach that got fired. There was clearly a lot of issues. It's still Florida. They're still a good team, and you're still going to have to go out and beat them. They're not just going to give you the fucking game. So Florida looked exactly the way I thought they would look yesterday. Exactly. Now Utah could have won. I'm not saying I was dealing with some fantastic prognosticator because I picked the game right. Utah definitely could have won that game, but Florida looked the way I thought they would look.
yeah, I mean, they were physical and they were scrappy and they have some raw talent. But what I was going to say about the bigger picture was the Pac-12 is a fucking joke. Like, your top two teams got their ass whipped. Like, Utah losing to an unranked SEC team, embarrassing. Oregon, who's supposed to be second, third, whatever in the Pac-12, losing by 50, fucking embarrassing. They shouldn't even be in playoff contention after that. I don't think they will because there's only USC left. But yeah, to me, that was the bigger story, was just how bad they looked as a conference, along with the ACC. But, I guess that's next to come.
Yeah. Let's hold the ACC for a minute because the ACC I thought looked the worst of the day. As bad as the Pac-12 looked, the ACC was as bad as it gets. But I'll tell you who looked pretty good yesterday was those Beavers. They went crazy on Boise State. So the Pac-12 might be hanging all their hopes on Oregon State now. They went undefeated at home last year. I didn't know that until I was watching the game last night. They put the graphic up, but they beat Boise State 34-17. So maybe Oregon State, is where it's at this year. I think that's the only team that got left that's got a hope.
Yeah,
USC.
If that's what the Pac-12's banking on, then they're in trouble.
Hey, don't sleep on the Beavers.
Yeah, the Beavers. I'm sleeping. I'm asleep.
Yeah, the Pac-12, man, that is. Oof.
I mean, maybe you're thinking of Boise State from 20 years ago, but they're not that anymore.
No, they look like shit, to be honest. They look like shit. But look, Oregon State defended their home field. They took care of business.
Do you want to move on to Arkansas?
You guys got anything else with the Pac-12? USC, I think, took care of business. UCLA took care of business. I mean, I really do believe that I think the Pac-12 was already eliminated from the playoff. I think after week 1, I don't think the Pac-12 has a chance to get a team in the playoff this year.
No, I agree completely. I mean, you have your best team lose to an unranked team. Even if Florida finishes like 10-2, fuck off.
I would say that the Pac-12 is more than likely eliminated. It really just depends. Like if USC goes undefeated, and there might not be another team. Like say the ACC doesn't have a strong contender, or the Big 12 doesn't have a strong contender. USC could definitely get that spot. I just don't know if they go undefeated.
Well, my assumption is that all the rest of the teams finish the way they're projected. And so there's no other team projected in the Pac-12 projected to go undefeated. I mean, USC is supposed to have a bounce back year a little bit with the coaching change and the transfers that they've gotten to come in the league, but nobody's expecting them to go undefeated and be a playoff contender. So yeah, you could have a surprise in there that goes undefeated, but I'm saying if things play out the way they're projected, there's nobody left. They're already done. Utah, and my understanding was that Utah was the Pac-12 hope to get in, the favorite, and Oregon was the runner-up. And those teams got, or Utah lost a good game, but to an unranked team. And Oregon, listen, they might need to shut Oregon down for the rest of the season to figure out what the hell happened. That might take an entire season of film study to figure out what happened on that ass whipping, because that was just absolutely embarrassing. I can't even say enough about it.
Yeah, I mean, Bo Nix has a lot of interceptions to come, so they're going to lose some more games.
There's no chance he's the starter after that game. I can't. If they roll him out again, they really should shut the program down for a while. Call Nike, get a refund on the uniforms, and move on.
Yeah, give those sweatshop kids back their money.
Yeah, Nike's good for that shit too, but they don't want to talk about that. All right, so I guess that's good on the Pac-12. We're gonna get into the ACC. I mean, to the Notre Dame Ohio State game here shortly. You guys want to get to that, or go through the ACC real quick, because they had a dog shit day too. Jamie, I know you're waiting to get into this Notre Dame shit. You want to wait a couple more minutes? You want to get rolling?
It doesn't matter.
I wanted to talk about Arkansas real quick, and the Carolinas.
I would save Notre Dame for last.
All right, we'll save Notre Dame for last. Go ahead with Arkansas and let's finish up, because there wasn't a lot more in the SEC after Arkansas. Alabama took care of business against Utah State. No surprise there. But what do you think about Arkansas?
I was pretty disappointed with Arkansas, actually. I thought Cincinnati had a pretty big drop-off with their talent from last year to this year. And I thought Arkansas would just bully them for the whole game. And it would be, 24-10, 24-7 type game. And it ended up being kind of a snoozer. It was 7-0 until the last 2 minutes of the half. Arkansas scored. And then the whole second half, Arkansas couldn't get a stop. It was just back and forth, which I thought was pitiful from Arkansas's perspective. So,
yeah, my takeaway from that game is that both teams aren't very good. Because I wasn't impressed by Cincinnati at all. And then the fact that Arkansas couldn't pull away and close the game out was also pretty concerning. I think Arkansas, they have that dynamic quarterback, KJ Jefferson.
Yeah, he was solid. He looks 40, but he was solid.
Yeah, he played fine and he was good, but I just don't. There's nothing that impressed me about Arkansas. I mean, they'll be a solid team, but nothing special for sure.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
I would say the way that they're built, I think they could lose to fucking Vandy or upset Alabama. Like, they were super streaky. The way their offense functioned.
Yeah, there's no fucking chance they upset Alabama, but they could lose to Vandy. I would agree with that. Their offense is too basic.
You guys
and they're not. It's almost like watching like Georgia Tech, when Georgia Tech tried to bring back the triple option. Like a decade ago, they tried to reintegrate that back into their system, and they just couldn't do it good enough to make it work. Like if you're committed to that style of play, you have to be like super good at that thing, and they're not that good at that thing. So they're physical and they're running the ball, but they just don't have the talent or the speed to really be great at that thing. So they're just a good team who's going to win half their games and lose half their games. They're just a mediocre team. But before you go back, Zach, I actually thought Cincinnati looked better than I thought they were. I thought Cincinnati would get dominated that game. And I didn't think that Arkansas was going to score 60 points. I thought they would control the whole game. I thought they would score, in the high 20s, 30 points, and keep Cincinnati to 3 or 10 points. So I actually thought Cincinnati looked better than I thought they would, and Arkansas was not very impressive.
Jamie, what were you going to say? And also, sorry, before you go, that quarterback was his name Bryant from Cincinnati.
Yeah.
He overthrew like 6 touchdowns. There was like numerous times that the Cincinnati receivers burned their corners, and he just missed.
Yeah, I noticed that too. and I wasn't impressed at all with him at quarterback. I was actually expecting him to make a change because I know that the battle was pretty close for them between the two quarterbacks that they were going to go with. And just watching the Bryant kid, he was missing a ton of throws, and he just really wasn't doing anything to get the offense moving or put them in position to score. But yeah, like I said, I wasn't impressed with either team.
Yeah, I think that's really troublesome for Arkansas. Like, I think when you play an out of conference game like that early in the season, you need to be able to physically dominate your opponent. Like, if you're Arkansas playing Cincinnati, you should be able to run the ball up the middle 5, 6, 7 yards a time. And they were just kind of all over the place. So
Yeah, I felt like they should have dominated it on the ground as well, and just kind of imposed their will, but they couldn't get it done. But the thing with Arkansas, it's not like they were, really expected to do much. They're just a team that's trending in the right direction. I don't think anybody really expects a whole lot from them this year. I think that the knock on them for this game is that everybody was expecting them to just dominate physically a team that should be smaller and have less talent, and they didn't. I think that's the knock. But in terms of Arkansas, not being impressive, I mean, nobody's expecting a ton from them, but I do think people like the direction they're headed. I love their coach. I watched him interviewed on some network before the games, and I really like his approach. He's a laid back guy, country guy.
Well, he was a great offensive line coach at Tennessee.
He's a good interview, man.
Yeah,
he's a good interview, and it sounds like he's got the people buying in, the fans and the students, and they're going in the right direction. So we'll see. I just don't think Arkansas is ever going to be. They're not going to be like they were back in the day. I mean, they put some teams together way back in the day with Houston Nutt, but I don't think those days are coming back. The recruiting is too difficult. They're in Arkansas. It's just not a big draw, I don't think. So I don't see Arkansas really ever making it back to being nationally relevant. But getting back to the point where they're just competitive is good. But Alabama's going to beat the shit out of them. There's no doubt about that. They cannot compete with Alabama. There's no way. There's not on any level, not in any way.
I would never say they were as good of a team as Alabama, but when their quarterback was playing well, they were firing all cylinders. Like, the dude was hitting his passes, he was running, and that's the shit that gives Alabama, trouble. But he was also missing very easy passes. He wasn't running when he should. They were kind of soft. So, I think if they play at their high level, they could upset Alabama, but I wouldn't pick them to do it.
Yeah, I don't think they have any level that's going to beat Alabama, but that's just me. All right, so that's it on the Arkansas-Cincy game, unless you guys have any last comments.
Do we want to talk about the commentator shit, or leave that for later?
The commentator shit.
Yeah, the commentators saying that if Cincinnati beat Arkansas, they would run the table and be in the playoff again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just, there was some commentator that made that comment that if Cincinnati had won, and then they would have a realistic chance to run the table, and that they should be a playoff contender again. I mean, I don't think anybody really believes that. I think it's one commentator. The fact is they lost, and
they were in the playoff last year.
I know, but we're talking about one commentator's opinion, and they lost the game anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant. But we can talk about it.
I mean, also last year they beat Notre Dame, and they got a ton of credit for that win, which, legitimate or not, a win over Arkansas is not a resume submitting. Like, you're not going to get a ton of points off a win against Arkansas. Like, you can't say our best win was Arkansas and like, all right, you're a playoff team. So that comment was just a bad one, a bad.
Arkansas is 19 if they beat them and go undefeated.
Yeah, but if Cincinnati beats Arkansas, where are they finishing? They're not finishing top 25, so that win doesn't even matter.
I mean, I agree with you, like, in general. I'm just saying, I think if they had beaten Arkansas and gone undefeated, they would be talked about for a playoff spot. And I think it's absurd to put any team in a playoff spot that doesn't play a real schedule.
I just had this conversation at a party I was at. I just had this conversation about not only football, with letting smaller schools in the, the subdivisions, whatever you want to call them, but also with March Madness, talking about eliminating the small schools from the tournament and putting the real best 64 teams in versus the real best, 40 teams, and then the conference winners from the small. I just had this conversation. But I think Cincinnati, had they beat Arkansas, I don't think that the Arkansas win would have been enough to propel them to a playoff status. But I think that if they'd beaten Arkansas, which is an SEC team, which is going to have probably a winning record, 500 or better, I think. If they had beaten Arkansas and then gone undefeated, I think the fact that they were just in the playoff and then back that up with another undefeated season, I do think they would have been I think they probably would have gotten in the playoff, depending on what the other Power 5 schools do. I do believe that.
They would have at least be considered, if not in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think no one who plays that schedule should even get a fucking invite. Like every other team, Georgia, Bama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Ohio State, their record is on the line every week against a Power 5 team. Cincinnati is just on fucking cruise control.
I agree. I definitely, and I think we all agree with that. I think that the Power 5 schools should get in the playoff, and that really should be the end of it. If you want to be in the playoff, I don't understand all this. Let's include everybody thing. If you want to be in the playoff and your schedule or your conference doesn't allow for that, join a conference. Expansion is happening all over the place. Realignment's happening all over the place. So if you're that good and that competitive, join a Power 5 conference. And the Big 12 is shopping around right now because they ain't got anybody left. So you can join them.
Oh, since he is slated to join the Big 12.
Well, there you go. So when they get in there, and then let's see if they run the table there. And then
I agree. I don't think they belong. And also last year they did get a playoff spot, and the conference that they play in, they struggled in some of their conference games.
yes.
So it wasn't even like they were blowing teams out and looking dominant. Like they were winning on last second scores in some of their games. So it is ridiculous to give the spot to Cincy over a team that actually, played a legitimate schedule.
Absolutely. I'm taking a 2-loss.
Baylor won the Big 12 last year, and they got left out. You can't tell me that Baylor's not a better team than Cincy.
I agree. And that's the problem. That's the problem with this whole playoff thing.
And if say Oklahoma would have won the Big 12, they're in, no questions asked. But if Baylor does it, then let's put Cincy in front of them. So
yeah.
Well, even on top of that, like my personal opinion is that say Cincinnati was the better team than Baylor, they didn't play a schedule, so fuck them. Like you need to win throughout the season and prove that you're the better team. I mean, say what you want about Georgia and Bama, but when they go on the road to Florida, when they go on the road to Tennessee, when they go on the road to Arkansas and Auburn, they're risking their schedule. LSU, like when you're Cincinnati going on the road to fucking, I don't know, who do they even play? Like Syracuse State or some bullshit?
Houston's every game.
Yeah. When Houston gets done battling with San Antonio, they go play Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And they're fighting for a playoff spot.
Whoa. That was University of Texas, San Antonio. If you got the name Texas in your title, they can't wait to put you in the top 25.
Yeah, so my whole point was you have to put it on the line all season. And if Cincinnati thinks they're in a bullshit conference, then they need to schedule 3 or 4 out-of-conference games that are legit.
Well, Cincinnati does. They even agree that they're in a bullshit conference. They're trying to get to the Big 12. Which is a bullshit conference.
If they schedule, Notre Dame and Ohio State and Miami, even if it doesn't pan out to where those teams are good, at least they schedule them.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing is, and the guys on TV, they always say the same fucking dumb shit, which is all you can do is beat the teams on your schedule. That's not all you can do. You can join a conference. Teams are moving left and right. Right now, everybody can join a conference. So don't tell me all you gotta do is beat the teams on your schedule, because the teams on your schedule are bullshit.
But also you have a little bit of control of your schedule. So schedule some real teams. If you're not in a Power 5 conference, schedule some Power 5 teams.
Right. Don't schedule Arkansas. Schedule Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State. Schedule those teams for the regular season. Well, they did schedule Notre Dame and they beat your ass. So you guys fucked that one up last year.
I took full accountability. We weren't a good team last year. We weren't a good team last year. So the fact that Cincinnati rode that win as their best win into the college football playoff is it doesn't make any sense.
Well, that was just their marquee win. They went undefeated. That's what got them in. But the thing that pisses me off with it, and we could talk about this all night long, and we're all going to agree, so there's really no point, is an undefeated Cincinnati is just not as good as a 3-loss SEC team or a 2-loss SEC team. And everybody knows that. But there's something that says, nope, can't put them in. They got 2 losses. We got to take the 1-loss team. It makes no fucking sense because you know you have a better team. And, last year, maybe Texas A&M or even Ole Miss or something like that. There were teams that were better, that were mid-tier conference teams.
Even Ohio State. Like Ohio State lost 2 games last year, didn't win the Big Ten. You can't tell me that Cincinnati would have beat Ohio State last year.
Exactly. And that's what I agree with. And it's just ridiculous. I mean, this need to put a team in because they're undefeated. And I'm not down with it, man. I'm just not down with it. And you're right. They get the schedule, I think, at 3 or 4 non-conference games, line up 3 or 4 SEC Big Ten schools, show that you can beat. And that's what Boise had to do eventually. And when they did it, they didn't make the championship. I think they got snubbed though. So maybe that's not a good example. But and Boise was a different example. I mean, Boise had some key wins. We're not going to go into Boise because they suck now. But when they were good, the same people were having the same argument about them, and they started to line up some of the big boys, and they were actually beating them. They did put the Georgia on their schedule. They did beat Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl, or I think it was a Sugar Bowl.
Fiesta.
Was it the Fiesta one? That's the greatest football game I've ever watched, other than Tennessee.
The Hook and Ladder, and then Statue of Liberty.
Oh my gosh, man, that was just an awesome game. That was.
And then the guy even proposed to his girlfriend after the game. That game had everything. It was like
yeah, until we got late, so it was great.
I'm telling you, that was a New Year's Day game, and I remember eating like leftover fucking buffalo wings from New Year's Eve, like fucking drinking beer, eating leftover wings by myself, and going crazy over this game of wing sauce and shit all over my face. Oh my gosh, that was such a good game.
Well, part of the reason I brought that up was because of the expansion. Because in the expansion, fucking 11-1 Cincinnati is getting in, which I think is absolute horseshit.
A what?
11-1 Cincinnati is getting into a 12-team playoff.
Well, and that's what Tebow said in on one of his shows. And look, I don't think Tebow is the sharpest knife in the drawer, but he was
can't
saying
even fucking read. So,
well, I don't know about all that, but he was saying that it's the 12-team playoff is going to be a good thing because now some teams like Cincinnati and an undefeated App State and all this bullshit, now they can get in. And I was shocked. I'm like, I thought that the base, and I don't know that Tebow was right. He's just giving us opinion, but I thought the basis for expanding to 12 was to get the 12 best fucking teams, not to start to include a bunch of teams that don't belong there like they do in March Madness. Now, March Madness is 64 teams. So people don't really, they don't really sweat the slots they give away to the smaller conference winners. And most of them get eliminated pretty quick. And everybody think, oh, it's great for, when you get the upset and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I get it. But football, you can't fuck around. If you got 12 slots, you need the 12 best teams. You're trying to find out who's the best team in college football. You cannot leave out 2-loss conference teams, SEC, Big Ten, whatever, to put in an undefeated App State who's going to get their ass whipped. It's not fucking smart, and it doesn't make sense, and it's not right. It isn't right. If these teams want to compete at the highest level, join a highest level conference or get left the fuck out. That's where I'm at with it. Or go independent. You don't even have to join a conference. Leave your conference. Go independent and schedule all the big boys that you want. Right?
Yeah, I mean that's what I do in NCAA.
Easy. It's not as easy as you think.
What?
Being independent. Only a couple of schools can do it.
Yeah, well, you guys haven't done it successfully since when's the last time y'all won a national title?
88.
Yeah. You haven't been doing it successfully. So I don't know that you guys are really given the blueprint there. You've shown that people can go independent. You haven't shown that you can be successful in 30 fucking years.
At the end of the day, does a 9-3 Ole Miss deserve to be in the playoff, or 12-0 Boise State? And I think a lot of people would say the 12-0 Boise State.
9-3 Ole Miss.
And I would say fuck them. They didn't play anybody.
Well, it depends. I mean, if Boise's undefeated and they played a couple legit teams, it really depends. Like,
yeah, if they schedule those teams, but I'm saying if they do what everyone does and schedule a couple bullshit teams and then play their conference. If your conference sucks balls, that's tough titties.
Well, the top rated non-Power 5 conference team is an automatic bid in the new system.
Who would that be right now?
Well, last year it would have been Cincinnati because they won their conference outside of the Power Five. So the top 6 conference winners get automatic bids. So that's gonna happen.
That's also horseshit.
It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. But you know, at least it's moving in the right direction. And you know, the problem I had, let's say, and this is the real issue. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because we've gone through this. But let's say I'll try to not make it personal, so I won't use Tennessee as an example. Let's use Florida as an example. Florida starts unranked. Let's say this year they run the table other than they lose to Georgia, and let's say they lose to Alabama. Alabama just happens to be the West team that's on their schedule this year.
LSU is always on their schedule, so you could use them.
But Alabama is. I want to use
Oh,
teams
okay.
that most likely going to
team. Okay.
Yeah. So let's say they lose to Bama, Georgia, but they otherwise go undefeated in the SEC. So here's my problem. You take an undefeated Cincinnati and you say, okay, well, Cincinnati went undefeated in their schedule, so they deserve to be in. Florida has 2 losses. They're not even in consideration. Let's flip it. If you put Cincinnati in the SEC, they probably lose many more games, but they most certainly lose to Georgia and Alabama because they're the number 1 and 2 teams in the country. So you're penalizing a team that plays in the hardest conference that happens to house 2 of the top teams in the nation that are going to be in the playoffs. So the fact that a team lost to them shouldn't be a shock. But where's the credit for running the rest of the table in the hardest conference in the country? That's the problem I have. So if that scenario plays out, I don't care that Cincinnati's undefeated. Florida in that scenario would still be a better team and more deserving to take one of those spots. But they will never do that because they would say, well, that's just you're just handpicking. It's too subjective and blah, blah, blah. And what it really comes down to is the haters don't want all the SEC teams in there. That's what it comes down to. So it's not right. That is not right. And the system isn't right. And this is why I think March Madness should knock out all those small conference winners too and just put the 64 real best teams in. But we won't talk about basketball right now. But the principle's the same. Put the best teams in the country in. The best teams in the country. And figure out a way to get that decided on the field. I don't know how you do that because, you know, the conferences are so lopsided. That's my rant on that. You guys got anything more with all that bullshit? All right.
No,
so
I think it's going to end up being 4 or 5 SEC teams, and you know, when they get to the Final Four, it's going to be 3 SEC teams out of 4, and people are going to bitch and whatever. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. So I want to talk about Herb Street's stupid ass comment about the NIL, but maybe let's save that for another show because we're getting close to our hour on this one. And I know we still haven't gotten to the matchup of the weekend, which was Notre Dame, Ohio State. That was the billboard game. That's the one everybody was looking forward to. I was looking forward to it. I think everybody was. That was the biggest matchup of the weekend. On the picks, me, Earl, Zach all took Ohio State. Jamie took Notre Dame as a Notre Dame fan. And I won't go into my thoughts yet. I'll let you kick us off with this one, Jamie.
Yeah, so I want to say that
You want to start with the score?
yeah, 21-10. The way our players played the game, the energy that they played with, and the belief that they belonged on the same field was definitely a change from what I was used to with Brian Kelly. I felt like our players truly believed that they could win the game, and they were out there to win the game. Our defense played very good. I thought our defensive coach, Al Golden, had a great game plan. We held them to 10 or 7 points in the first half. And really the defense played lights out until the end of the third quarter, which I don't know if it was a miscommunication or just a bad call, but we basically blitzed both of our safeties from their safety spots. So we didn't even bring them up to the line of scrimmage to blitz. We blitzed them from their safety spot at the snap. So it had to be a miscommunication. Both safeties blitzed. The middle was wide open. The corner was on an island. He even looked like he was expecting safety help. It was an easy touchdown for CJ Stroud. From that point, I think the game kind of switched over. But defense played great. The offense just and not even the players, because I feel like our players were game and they were ready to make plays, and they did take advantage of all the opportunities that they had. But the play calling was so bad and too conservative. Like our very first drive, we throw the quick pass to the right side, the corner doesn't make a play, and our guy scampers up the sideline for 60 yards. We also get a personal foul penalty. It puts us on the 15 or 10-yard line. We're in the red zone basically. And the next 3 plays that we run, 2 runs up the middle that are stuffed with a full box. So Ohio State is playing the run. And then we run a QB troll that gets 0 yards and we settle for the field goal. Where there, I thought we could have been a little bit more aggressive and just been a little bit more, aggressive with our play calling and try to score. You go in there, score a touchdown on the first drive, you're really setting a tone and you're sending the message that we're here to play and we're here to win. We didn't do that, which is fine. We got 3 points, whatever. We end up going into halftime. They miss a field goal, so we're up 10-7, which is fine. That's what we needed to do in the game to win. Limit their possessions and control the clock and just be smart. Don't turn the ball over. We didn't turn the ball over all game. My issue is that we just didn't really do anything, and the play calling on offense was just not very good. I don't know if we went in with the plan of let's run the ball, let's control the line of scrimmage. And at first that didn't really happen. And I feel like once that happened, we didn't have a backup plan or the adjustments just weren't there. Every time we threw the ball, for the most part, it was down the field, one-on-one plays, which we should have been doing that. We should have been doing that more because Ohio State was playing zero coverage numerous times on our receivers. And the few times that we did throw it down the field, we caught the ball and we made plays. So I just feel like our coordinator didn't put our team in the best positions to be successful and to win the game. Obviously, at the end of the game, Ohio State they took over. They had the nice drive to get down the field they were ripping off huge run plays, and they got it into the end zone. So ultimately, they took over the game. But that third down and 11 play where we blitzed both of our safeties, just it kind of. I was very confused at the play call. I'd be curious to know if that was actually the play call or if it was supposed to be one of the safeties to blitz. It was just very confusing. And from that point, I think it just really, messed up all of our momentum and kind of ruined what we had going. And then Ohio State, they won the game. They ripped off the runs and they had the drive to get them in the end zone to make it 21-10. And we just didn't have an answer. So I felt like I'm not really happy with the way we played, but I'm happy with the players and the energy that they played with. I just wish that our coaches and not really I would say our offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees, you got to do a better job of putting our players in positions to make plays. And Marcus Freeman, I have no issues with Marcus Freeman. I'm a huge believer in what he's doing. I just think that with him being such a defensive minded coach and not having the experience, that you really need to have an offensive coordinator that knows what they're doing and that has the shit figured out. So if Tommy Rees continues to struggle and he doesn't put a good product on the field, this needs to be his last year because Marcus Freeman doesn't have time to mess around with that shit. He has the defense. He knows what he's doing on defense. We need someone that can run the offense and make us, competitive. Because right now we're good defensively, not so much offensively.
All right. Yeah, I'll go and then I'll hand it over to Zach before you start arguing all your points. But so my takeaways from the game, I thought the game was boring. I was texting with Zach during the game. I was leaving you alone so you could focus on the game. But we were questioning the play calling too, that it just seemed really soft and just ultra conservative. And I agree with you. I thought the energy was good. You guys played physical. I think defensively, you were holding up for the most part. It was a matter of time before Ohio State was going to break some plays loose. I think you guys know that, or the team should have known that, the coaches. And so while you were holding them early, I was really surprised at the risk aversion, the ultra conservative play calling, almost just afraid to give the game away and just being comfortable with punting it away. I thought it was a loser's mentality. I think when you're going into a game, and I heard Marcus Freeman interviewed about the spread, and he said that's good to know, and he sort of carried himself like, yeah, well, we're we're taking that shit personal. And then that was sort of the mentality that I felt like he was projecting. And the play calling didn't reflect that. And I know you and I talked about the play calling with Notre Dame when Marcus Freeman took over and after we watched the Oklahoma State game. And this to me was very similar to that Oklahoma State game in that you guys played great in that first half of that game and then looked super lackluster in the second half. And there was a fall off. That's a pattern that I would be concerned about. The play calling hasn't changed. And I know that one of the things that you said to me, and I'm not blaming you or saying I told you so, but these are the things that I would find concerning as a fan, is that you felt like, well, with Marcus Freeman taking over, that Brian Kelly was really putting limitations on your offensive coordinator and that he would be able to open up the offense more, but he didn't. He played ultra conservative. And when you're playing a team and you're a 17-point underdog, you really don't have anything to lose. So playing conservative and not trying to jump on somebody when they're clearly struggling on offense, I just didn't understand. And you guys were fortunate enough to get some really, really questionable calls to keep drives alive. The personal foul call on the quarterback sliding, I thought was complete horseshit. I'm watching the Florida State LSU game right now while we're recording this podcast. And there was an identical play that just happened. And the referees didn't even reach for their flag. Nothing stopped. Nothing has. They just keep moving. It's just a normal football play. Keep it moving. Notre Dame gets that call. The pass down the field where the receiver makes a diving catch, it was most certainly incomplete. The ball absolutely came loose and rolled around. No, not even a review. That shit pisses me off at Notre Dame. But I'm not going to get into all that. I'm not about hating the Notre Dame tonight. I'm just saying that I do think they were fortunate enough to get some good calls. Their defense played, I think, well enough to win the game. And offensively, and the coaching just didn't seem to be there. And then the willingness to say, look, we're going to try to take this game. It was, let's make sure we don't lose this game. And ultimately you did, which is exactly what happens with that kind of play calling. And this is what, that was my concern for you coming into the season was, would the coaching be significantly different to really get after these big games where Brian Kelly, I felt like, was a choke artist in those games. And he did that exact same thing. This mentality of let's just not lose it. We're here. I just don't get it. So I think while your team obviously has a lot of talent, Notre Dame has a lot of talent, and they are big, and the tight ends look awesome. The quarterback showed some things. I wasn't overly impressed, but he's got some time to grow and develop over the season. You guys play some really shitty teams, so he'll have time to get in a rhythm. But the tight ends looked awesome, and the running game was okay. The defense looked pretty good, but I think there were some things that I would be ultra concerned about as a Notre Dame fan with the coaching, and most certainly the play calling. And ultimately, that falls on the coach to me. So Marcus Freeman has to make some decisions about how he's going to proceed with this team. But that's my take. I'd be concerned. Zach?
I thought it was a pretty boring game. They let Ohio State just wear them down as the game went on. For me, the moment that I knew Notre Dame was going to lose the game was, I think it was 7-0. They had the ball at Ohio State's 10-yard line. And it was 3rd and 9. And they ran a quarterback draw. And to me, that's pussy play calling. Like, you're playing to not lose. And you're never going to win a big game with that mentality. Like, to me, that's when you take shots. You go for the throat. Like, you want to fucking bury them when you can. And that reflected the entire play calling for the whole game to me. Was very conservative, very reserved, very let's just not make a mistake and hope that they do. And, when you get a defensive coordinator as a head coach, which Tennessee has done, I think they tend to do that shit where they're overly reserved and they hold back when you need to fucking step up and be aggressive. And Notre Dame, I thought, dominated on the defensive line. Their offense didn't score a point in the second half. So I don't know if that's going to be the theme for the season, or maybe it was just Ohio State. But the offense did not look good to me. I mean, you guys were a busted play, a busted play for 3 points and a touchdown. And outside of that, they didn't do shit. It was maybe a first down here, maybe a first down there, and punt. Yeah. And they looked very hesitant to do anything. So I would be concerned with that.
I agree. The play that's what I said is the play calling. The coordinator just didn't. They let the team down because the defense they did everything they had to do to win the game. The defense played fine. I can't even blame the defense for wearing down. Our offense should have capitalized on the opportunities that we had leading up to that point to where our defense breaking down wouldn't have lost us the game because we should have scored numerous times before that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if you're going to play a like possession control type of game, you have to move the ball. You have to have the ball for 3, 4, 5 minutes. Notre Dame wasn't doing it. They were having the ball for 3 and outs and punting.
And
so of course Ohio State's going to drive down the field, 95 yards and just jam it down your throat when the defense has been on the field the entire fucking game. And that's what happened.
Yeah. And the play calling was not very good. It was very,
vanilla.
It was vanilla. And it was where, I don't know, like most of our passing plays were just go routes, which I'm fine with that because they were playing cover 0. But the fact that a walk-on, the Matt Salerno kid, the kid that made the great catch, it was an awesome catch. He's a walk-on. He had more targets than both of our top receivers. It's the whole game plan didn't make any sense offensively. It really pissed me off. And I do hate when teams play to not lose rather than to win the game. Because if they were more aggressive on offense, I felt like we could have won the game. And I understand Tyler Buckner, it's his first start. He's a young quarterback, but he was game. Everything they asked him to do, he was ready to do it. So why not let him make plays? So I don't understand it. And like I said, if Tommy Rees can't figure his shit out this year, he's got to go, and we got to bring someone in that is proven and can run an offense because that's not Marcus Freeman's strong point. He has said that he basically needs someone to, run the offense. So
I hope that for your sake that Marcus Freeman isn't reining him in, because you just don't know with the inner dynamics if he's like, hey, don't fuck this game up, the defense will win it. Because that's what's happened with our coaches. So.
Yes. The defensive, when we've had defensive coordinators, even Philip Fulmer, who was an offensive line guy, did exactly that. And that's what ultimately cost him his job, was he brought in Dave Clawson. I'm not going to go on a Tennessee tangent, but these are patterns that we're somewhat familiar with some serious struggles. And when Philip Fulmer ultimately got fired, he brought in Dave Clawson to run the spread. But Phil Fulmer was a pro style guy and just restricted him so much. And Clawson was very open about it and said, listen, I can't do it halfway. Either we got to get the personnel and run it, or it doesn't work. And they both got fired. So they just cleaned house, got rid of everybody. And so anytime that you're defensive coordinator, I do think that defensive coordinators have a tendency to be more conservative and say, look, keep us in this game. Let our defense take care of business, especially if they really believe in the defense and you guys have a good defense. I think their biggest concern, and I'm not going to harp on this, I thought it was an okay game. I think Notre Dame's playoff hopes are intact because it was close. I do think that Ohio State is super overrated again. But I think the thing that's concerning for me, and I think this really is the biggest issue right now, is that a lot of coaches, when they take over, they clean house and bring in their people. He was there with Tommy Rees. He already knew what Tommy Rees was. He elected to keep him, and the play calling didn't change. And it was very reminiscent of the game against Oklahoma State, is exactly what we saw again. So his willingness to say, this is the guy I'm going to go ahead and stick with, this game falls on him. I'm not going to put on the offensive coordinator. I'm putting it on Freeman because he knew what he had when he said, I'm keeping him. So I'm not beating him up and saying he's going to be a bust as a head coach, but he ain't off to a good start.
Yeah. So I just a couple of things that you said about the calls and whatnot. The catch where you said the ball moved or whatever, the ball definitely moved, but his hand was under the ball the entire time.
But the ball hit the ground.
No, never. The ball never hit the ground.
And ball hit the ground.
Never. It never hit the ground.
It did.
They reviewed the play because it went to commercial. It did. And they came back and said that they reviewed the play. And because the one ref on the sideline actually ruled it as incomplete pass
initially, and then changed it to a completed pass.
Right. But then when they played the replay, the ball does move around, but his whole arm was under the ball the entire time. And looking at that replay, there's no way you would have overturned that anyways, because they called it a catch on the field.
Well, they called it incomplete and then called it a catch. And the thing is, when they showed the replay, I saw the ball hit the ground. The ball hit the ground. he had his hand under it, but the ball moves. The ball does hit the ground, and then he gathers it back in. It was the easiest incomplete pass I've ever seen.
I didn't see that.
And I thought I heard the announcer say they didn't review it. I thought they reviewed it too, but I heard the announcer say that one would at least warranted going to a review. I'm surprised they didn't review it. I thought that's what I heard them say, but maybe you're right.
That was probably Kirk Herbstreit, because the entire fucking night you could tell that he was rooting for Ohio State. And the fact that they let him call a game for Ohio State, they got to do something about that, because he literally pissed off every Notre Dame fan all fucking night.
Wait. So we have the Thursday show, and we're about 15 minutes over tonight. So if we get into the Herbstreit stuff, we'll have to figure out what we're gonna do with the next show. I mean, I think that
just save it for the next one.
I think we should just let it go as long as we're going.
All right. Well, it's gonna run into a conflict, but that's okay. We can go ahead and do it.
I mean, the hour is not a hard limit, is it? So
no. But the recording time is.
Well, yeah. I mean, Herbstreit said it Monday, so I think we should put it out tomorrow anyway. Yeah.
So Herbstreit made his comment. First of all, the Herbstreit doing the Ohio State games, I agree, and I think it's completely ridiculous. He's a Ohio State alum. He openly roots for them. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. You're a fan. You went to that school. You played for the team. Don't fucking commentate the games. Let somebody else do it. Just go be a fan for the night, or just do a different game. It's really bullshit that they let him do these games. I don't think he's as hardcore rooting as you are, but I'm not as sensitive because I'm not a Notre Dame fan. But he definitely makes comments pro Ohio State.
But you've literally said, you've complained about the commentators that cover Tennessee.
Yeah,
they're not Tennessee alums, and they didn't play for. Or they're not alums of the teams that you're playing.
Yeah,
they didn't play for that team. So imagine Kirk Herbstreit. I don't know. Like you would have to experience it to really understand.
I'm not disagreeing.
I'm completely on board with Jamie here. Kirk Herbstreit is a fucking asshole. He's a complete homer. He has no business commentating an Ohio State game.
I agree. I'm just saying I don't think it was quite as egregious as a Notre Dame fan. And I said, I'm not a Notre Dame fan, so I'm not as sensitive to it. I do think that he makes comments that are pro Ohio State. I'm not disagreeing at all. And I do disagree also. It's
just funny. It's just funny because like literally anything can happen, and you're like, see, they hate Tennessee. They hate Tennessee. They're all against us. And then you have Kirk Herbstreit calling the game and openly rooting for Ohio State and making the case why it should have went Ohio State's way. And you're like, well, so fuck you and Kirk Herbstreit.
Hey, listen, don't be putting words in my mouth. I sat here and agreed with you. I do not think that he was like opening. He wasn't like when they scored a touchdown, he was like, yes.
Yes, he was.
Like,
yes, he was.
His mic. They cut
yes,
his
he was.
Definitely celebrating.
Him and fucking Reese both.
He's a total bitch.
We're like, oh, it's the touchdown. They were fucking losing their minds. I heard that shit.
On, you guys stop it. That's ridiculous.
Even Fowler, is that's his name, right? Chris Fowler?
Chris Fowler, yeah.
Yeah, even he was sucking on it. So I was pretty annoyed during the game. And it wasn't even because we were losing, because at the point we were winning. And I'm just like, this dude's seriously openly rooting for, like, you have an Ohio State fan calling the game. Is this like a make-a-wish fucking scenario? Like,
I'm not disagreeing. I'm not as sensitive as you are to is what I said. I totally
Yes, you are. When it's Tennessee, you're more sensitive.
That's
now
true.
that it's Notre Dame, you're like, meh. Fucking bullshit. It's fucking bullshit.
Hey, come on, man. You're putting words in my mouth. I never said, eh.
Yes, you did.
Oh, please wait till somebody says, oh, Florida's colors are cool. You'll be throwing a fucking tantrum.
Hey, listen, every time Tennessee's on CBS, those commentators root against Tennessee the entire motherfucking game. The entire game. As soon as we win against a team that's good, they say, well, this team's just not as good as we thought they would be this year. Yeah. They completely shit on the other team.
But imagine if those guys played for the team you were playing. It just adds to it. It's I can't believe they allowed it to happen.
I agree 100%. I don't think it's right that he gets to call those games. I'm not denying that at all. I'm saying I'm not as sensitive as you are. And I said it's because I'm not a Notre Dame fan. You have to admit, Notre Dame fans are going to be more sensitive because everybody knows he roots for Ohio State. And everybody's already sort of jacked up and keyed up knowing that he's probably going to root for them in the game. So you guys are much more sensitive. I agree that he does it. But I don't agree that it's to the degree that you say. He's not just openly rooting. He's just making comments that he definitely shows he's favoring Ohio State. I agree with that, and I don't think he should be on those games. So I'm not disagreeing.
Even the call where the player got penalized for hitting the quarterback that slid, right?
Yeah.
Questionable call, whatever. You can go one way or the other. But
Yeah.
when the rules analyst comes on and says, yes, this is the right call, and the Ohio State player could have avoided the contact, and Kirk Herbstreit's like, could he have? Like, what? Like, are you gonna argue with the rules, Alan? What? Are you fucking kidding me? When has that ever happened? Where the rules analyst comes on and the guy's like, "Oh, well, no, I don't agree. Like, I don't think so. Could he have done that?" Like, it was bad. That was the part that pissed me off the most. Not even the fact that our offensive coordinator was being a fucking fat pussy and it was the Kirk Herbstreit shit. The fact that they would let him call that game, I was furious.
I actually agree with you about that from a commentary perspective, but that call was fucking horseshit. Like, you have a running quarterback who just drops to his ass at the last second, and then call an unnecessary roughness.
Yeah, I don't.
There's no fucking way that defender can stop himself.
Well, I don't love. I mean, I hate calls like that. I hate the targeting shit. I hate all the sensitive shit. And I'm okay if you say, that was a bad call, but we're fans. We're allowed to say it. But for Kirk Herbstreit to like attack the guy who's basically defending the call is out of line.
I agree. It's bullshit.
Yeah, I did. I have to admit, I noticed that comment too, and it kind of struck me as like, what the fuck?
And then the other time, I'm sure you guys remember. So our tight end, Buckner threw a pass, and our tight end went up and caught the ball. It was a great catch. And then a couple seconds later, he fucking fumbled out of nowhere. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
But when he caught that pass, Herbstreit's like, he pushed off on the defender, or he said he got away with a push off. And I'm like, he jumped up and caught the ball. Like, there was no push off. He just pissed me off all night. If I seen him, I would fucking fight him. And I'm not even a person that fights, but I would risk jail just to hit in on his bitch ass.
He probably started fucking crying anyway. So.
Kirk Herbstreit over the years has really
deteriorated.
I hate him. I fucking hate him.
Yeah.
Listen, the second they started this playoff system, all the ESPN guys started advocating for their schools to be in the playoff. They started making a push for their conferences and their schools to get teams in. It's complete bullshit. I don't think they should be allowed to do that. It used to be, I mean, listen, Herbstreit's the face of college football, and he earned that title over the decades of really great coverage of the sport. But over the last 10 years, ever since this playoff took off, he's a fan. He's an Ohio State fan, and he's the show where they did the selection and Ohio State was on the bubble. Maybe it's going to be Ohio State. Maybe it's going to be Bama. And they put in Bama and left out Ohio State. And he gets up and walks off the set. Like, you're supposed to be a professional, and this is what you do when your team doesn't get in. Would you have got up and walked off the set if Alabama had got in, or some other snub that you thought happened? This is personal. Yeah. And it's become transparent that these guys are personally have a rooting interest, and the objectivity is gone. Now, I'll tell you what I like is that I think it was Tebow was talking about, and I'm not a Tebow fan, but as an analyst, I don't really care. I'm indifferent. I wasn't a fan of him as a quarterback. He's a great football player. But he made the comment. He said, I think the home and home of the first playoff series is going to be great. So you get games in Death Valley, you get games in the Horseshoe, you get games in the Swamp. He said, which I'm biased to. I don't have a problem with that. Like, if you be open and transparent about what your biases are, but don't pretend like you're being an objective analyst or commentator for a game when really what you're doing is rooting for your team, and you act like we're all too stupid to know what the fuck is going on. That's the shit that pisses me off. And I do think when you're calling a game, it's different. And I don't think you should be allowed to call your own school's game. I just don't. And it's because he's got seniority and he's been there forever, so they let him do what the fuck he wants. But it's bullshit to all the fans that have to listen to that crap. That's why a lot of older people, they turn that shit off. They turn the sound off and listen to the local radio people. So they don't have to listen to these fucking assholes. But that's enough about Herbstreit.
I remember when Herbstreit walked off of the set. I remember that because I was what a bitch.
Yeah.
But the other thing, I mean, he's totally a homer for Ohio State, and
the Big Ten.
And here lately, like, I used to love that Desmond Howard. Like, he was always my favorite. But ever since Michigan started like being, turning it around and doing better, he's a complete sellout for Michigan. The only one that I can say does a good job of not selling out to their team is David Pollock. You wouldn't even know that he played for Georgia, and Georgia won the fucking championship last year. He didn't say a word about Georgia. he does the best job at not being biased. But all the rest of them, so you have Kirk Herbstreit, he's Ohio State, and then you have Dez, Miami, and Lee Corso doesn't even know what fucking planet he's on. So it's all just so yeah, college is really going downhill.
I'll be honest, I really don't care about the bias either. Just say it.
Yeah, be open about it.
Just say I went to fucking Auburn. I'm rooting for them, and then I understand that all your perspective is I am an Auburn fan, and this is what I'm saying.
Right, like we're doing here.
Yeah.
But these guys get on there and say, well, I think this and I think this. It's like, bitch, we know what you think. You want your team to win. You want your team to go to the playoff. We know what you listen. I saw Jesse Palmer do this years ago. When Tim Tebow was still playing, Tim Tebow won the national title with Florida. His statistics were terrible. This is true. This happened. His statistics were not that great. McFadden had an awesome year. He should have won the Heisman. Tim Tebow
absolutely deserved the Heisman.
Yeah, but Tim Tebow won the Heisman because they won the national title. And Jesse Palmer was on TV and said, well, you can't always go by statistics. He led his team to a title. The next year, Florida had 2 losses, something like that, 3 losses. They weren't as good. They had a drop off. And Tebow was in the Heisman race. And Palmer literally said, it's not all about wins and losses. Sometimes you got to look at the individual's performance. And Tim Tebow's stats support winning the Heisman. He literally said the exact opposite to get a Florida guy the Heisman Trophy. And I remember one of the announcers that he was talking to, he goes, really? That's what you're saying now? Like he called them out. And it was just, and these guys, and it's fucking insulting. They act like we're all goldfish. Like we don't remember what you said last year or last week. Like you can just fucking say any random thing you want, and we're gonna be like, oh, that's really insightful. We really appreciate your take on that. It's like, no, bitch, you're a fucking Florida quarterback. We know who you are. Say who you're rooting for and why you're advocating.
They even do that for the playoff committee too. Like one year conference championships matter, the next year they don't.
Yep.
Head to head, sometimes head to head doesn't matter. Like the criteria is different every year, depending on who they want to get in.
That's why I said that shit to you in the group chat was 12 teams just means there'll be more corruption. Like they're going to put in who they fucking want to. And that's the end of it.
Yeah.
I mean, a 12 team playoff, Ohio State will be there every fucking year.
Well, until they drop off. I'm not a believer in this Ryan Day. And I think Ohio State is way fun. We didn't even get into how overrated they were because we were talking about Notre Dame and some of the issues there or kind of really looking at them. But if you look at Ohio State in that game, I was super unimpressed. And, I think we talked, I don't know if we talked on the last show or I was talking to you guys offline, but one of the guy, I don't know, one of those guys, they said, would you take Ohio State, Clemson or Ohio State, Georgia and Bama to win the national title or the field? And he said, I would take one of those 3 teams. And I'm like, really? Over the fucking field? Like out of all the other 100 teams, you're taking those 3 teams? Like I understand Alabama's a juggernaut. But Ohio State, when's the last time they won the national title?
Yeah, but that was also before you seen Georgia fucking destroy Oregon. So you might want to take those 3 now.
Fuck that.
But
listen, Georgia still has to go through us, and Alabama still has to come to Knoxville. I don't want to hear shit until they take care of business with us. It ain't gonna happen.
Look, man, nobody's fucking talking about you guys. Until you guys win an important game, nobody gives a fuck where anybody has to go through Knoxville. And
Wait till this weekend.
And the other thing that I'll say is I do think Ohio State is legit. I just think that I think that we have a really good defense. So
what do you think? What do you think the score would be if Ohio State played Bama or Georgia right now?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't.
It would be an absolute fucking ass whipping.
Yeah,
we might see in the playoff.
Well, we're gonna see it.
We most certainly will.
Well, I don't. I mean, it's not a foregone conclusion that Ohio State wins the Big Ten. I mean, Michigan's still, they have to play that game. So
they might lose to Iowa with 6 safeties and no touchdowns.
Oh yeah, what about that? That was your pick to play in the fucking Big Ten title game. Iowa wins a game scoring no touchdowns, a field goal and 2 safeties.
Yeah, that's
against South Dakota State.
Oh yeah. Hey, but South Dakota State, who are they? The Jackrabbits?
Yeah, but that Iowa's versatile. Like they can win a new way. So I stand by that pick. We'll have them in the Big Ten. So
I mean, listen, I'm not going to give Iowa a hard time for struggling with the Jackrabbits. You can't fuck with a team named the Jackrabbits.
Yeah, they're always ready to go.
Talk about an ugly ass game, man.
I don't know, man, but I just don't. I think the Big Ten is not all that great. I'm not surprised that you think that Ohio State's that good, because you have to say that in order to justify losing and to really pump up what you got going on for the rest of the season. So as a Notre Dame fan, you have to say that and believe that. But as an outsider who's not a fan of either team, Ohio State did not look good at all.
That's true, right? Like Notre Dame now needs Ohio State to win out and win the Big Ten, right? To get in the playoff. But just based on the players that Ohio State has, the way their offense looked last year, I mean, I think they're still a good team. For you to say that they're overrated and not very good.
I didn't say they're not very good. I said they're way overrated.
Yeah, I don't know if you can say that just yet.
I just did.
That's what I absolutely will. Come playoff time.
I don't know
if they play fucking Georgia in the 3 seed or something. It's going to be a shit show. So.
And it could be. I'm just saying it might be a little too early to say that. And I mean, I don't blame you guys for thinking that, but I'm not saying that yet.
If Notre Dame had a functional offense, they would have just went into Ohio State and won that game.
We should have.
Yeah.
I don't think that Ohio State goes undefeated. They might win the Big Ten, and if they do, they'll get a playoff spot. But I do not think they go undefeated. I said that before I saw one game, and I truly believe that now. And as unimpressive as Penn State was, I think Ohio State going into any environment, any hostile environment, if they don't look 100 times better, they're not getting out of that conference undefeated. I'm not impressed with the Big Ten, but you still got to beat all those teams, and I just don't see it happen. Hey, let me give you a quick score update. Florida State's up 7-3 with 6 minutes left in the second quarter.
Oh, the favorite coach is failing.
Yeah, the
I thought he was an offensive mastermind.
Yeah, they called him elite.
Coach Kelly, piece of shit.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he's been hanging out with Flacco too much.
Yeah, I just had this whole Flacco conversation with the Ravens fan. It's fucking brutal listening to these dudes, man. They all read the same script. I mean, it's literally the same conversation over and over.
They're fucking NPCs.
Let's talk about that later.
Do you want to talk about these Herb Street comments? Because we went off on calling him a cocksucker and didn't get into his.
Yeah, let's do the Herb Street comments, and then we also didn't talk about some of these ACC upsets yet.
So we just went on a 20-minute discussion about how Kirk Herbstreit's a cocksucker. So you guys want to do it all again? Because that's all that we're gonna say is that he's a cocksucker.
No, I actually do want to talk about the NIL stuff, because that is a complete fucking bitch move what he did. So
talk about it.
Yeah. So do you want to
read the quotes?
Yeah. Well, the exact quote. I don't have the exact quote in front of me. If you have that up, to paraphrase, he said that the NIL, the way that some of the schools are doing it, is not right. It's not the way it's intended to be used. But then he specifically referenced the quarterback that Tennessee signed and how that's not the right way to do it. And then if the quarterback is a bust, then how are those adults in Knoxville going to feel for signing a kid who has never played it down? The right way to do it is the way that players like CJ Stroud. So he specifically referenced.
I have the quote pulled up. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So he says, that's not what the NIL was about. It was about Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or a guy who was established in the field creating marketing opportunities. It's not about trying to outbid another booster to try to get a recruit. That's just not a healthy model. It's terrible for the sport. It puts these coaches in weird spots. And then he goes on to.
That's not the end of the quote. That wasn't the relevant part of the quote. The relevant part of the quote was when he specifically referenced the signing quarterback for Tennessee.
All right, do you want me to read the next part then?
Yeah, because the stuff about the money sharing was irrelevant.
Okay, he says, how can an adult with a good conscience say this is awesome for the sport? What's going to happen when the kid from Warren, as an example, he's talking about the Tennessee recruit. So what's going to happen with the kid from Warren, as an example? Hopefully he's a great player. But with the reports about him receiving 3 years, $8 million, what if he doesn't pan out? What if he struggles? What happens then? I mean, that's going to happen eventually. How are these guys in Knoxville going to feel about that? How's he going to go over in the locker room, you know?
Right. So he references that CJ Stroud, the way they're doing it is the right way to do it, the way that those guys in Knoxville and the kid that they signed in Knoxville is the wrong way to do it. He's a complete piece of shit. This isn't the first time that he shit on Tennessee and been a complete hypocrite, just like he did when Gallman flipped off the stands. So we had a Tennessee football player that got an interception, inappropriately gave the finger to the fans. He was wrong, should have been penalized, whatever, and he was. And Herbstreit came on TV and said he should be thrown off the team. Then Baker Mayfield grabbing his dick and giving all these motions to the stands, people can blow him and all this shit. And Herbstreit says it's just the competitive spirit in him. So then he gets called out by Tennessee for being a hypocrite and issues an apology. Here he is again, shitting on Tennessee again to make a case and to really support Ohio State. Listen, I can't stand Herbstreit. I will never watch another ESPN show or game day. I don't give a fuck. He can kiss my ass. I'm done with this fucking dude, man. I'm done with the show. Fuck him.
Hey, it's funny because you sound pretty sensitive now that Kurt Hershey's talking about Tennessee.
We read a quote, bitch. We read a quote.
Yeah, I read you a quote too while he was calling our fucking game.
That wasn't a quote. That was your interpretation of what you heard. You heard the wrong thing.
I was paraphrasing.
That's not a quote, dumbass.
Hey, good enough. Hey, you know what happened.
I know what happened. I know this quote too. That's his words. I can't stand the dude, man. I'm done with him. I'm done with all those guys.
At the end of the day, he's a fucking piece of shit. He's calling out a 17-year-old kid for making money off his own name.
Right.
And you know full fucking well that as soon as Ohio State gets a big 5-star recruit, pays him $10 million, there won't be a fucking peep.
Yep. I'm good with all that.
Word. Word. Can't stand them. Fucking done with it. So anyway, let's wrap this show up with the rest of the ACC. I will call them. I mean, we had one upset. So Old Dominion was a 28-point dog playing against Virginia Tech and won.
That's the second win in 4 years, right?
I think it's the second win in 2 years.
No, they beat them in 2018.
I didn't even understand why Virginia Tech was playing in Old Dominion, but I didn't realize they had this series going back and forth. It's kind of weird that they're doing home and homes with Old Dominion.
Well, there were a few games like that because North Carolina, weren't they? No, North Carolina was playing at home, right? But
yeah, usually when they play the small schools, they do it at home and they just pay the schools to come in there and get their ass whipped as a scrimmage or a tune-up.
But NC State was at ECU.
Yeah.
There were a couple games where the bigger school was at the little school. So I don't know what's going on.
Well, I guess maybe they're doing these home and homes instead of doing it with the small schools, instead of doing it with the big boys that'll beat their ass. Because clearly they're not ready to do it with a real school. So we did a home and home with Pitt, and Virginia Tech's doing one with Old Dominion, and looks like NC State's doing one with East Carolina.
And East Carolina should have won the game. They missed the extra point and then missed a field goal.
Yeah.
So like all this hype on NC State that we were talking about in our preseason show, I mean, I guess we're validated because we had no clue why people were high on NC State. And from what I've seen, they don't deserve to be in the top 25 at all.
I think this is the first time I've ever thought that a team who won their game in the top 25 should drop out. I mean, that was an abysmal performance.
It was. They should definitely drop out of the top 25, but they won't because they need something to boost up Clemson's resume. Got to get Clemson in there.
And then the other game, North Carolina and App State, that game was bonkers.
That was insane. That was like a basketball score.
He said bonkers.
Bonkers.
Bonkers?
I think he said golly gee willikers too.
He pulled out bonkers.
Bonkers.
So listen, just the thing on NC State, they're clearly overrated. They need to drop out of top 25, and they definitely should have been in overtime. I don't know if ECU would have come back to win or not, but that was a pretty unfortunate way to lose that game with the extra point in the missed field goal. I didn't really understand why they settled for such a long field goal.
That was also some more pussy coaching.
Yeah,
they threw 2 fucking plays, got in the 50-yard field goal range, and then got scared to death. They had a minute and a half left.
Just straight, your guy just makes an extra point. I mean, don't you think maybe you need to just go ahead and get in the end zone there?
Yeah, throw a fucking pass.
It's weird. That was weird. But they were lucky to escape. We'll see what happens to them in the rankings. The rankings are bullshit too. But and then so North Carolina, and we talked about them after they played in week fucking 0. And I had said that, and I am saying I told you so, because I said that their defense looked really weak to me, and that Matt Brown had said, well, we had a couple breakdowns, and I said I felt like the breakdowns happen every time the defense is on the field, and their defense was non-existent. It was pathetic. They gave up 40 fucking points in the fourth quarter. They gave up 40 points in the fourth quarter. And then really should have lost because App State overthrew the 2-point conversion to a guy who was just absolutely wide open. And then they return the onside kick for a touchdown. When they fall down, the game's over. They take a knee, but they run it in, give App State the ball back, who comes down and scores in like 3 plays. Unbelievable. I mean, it's a great game to watch from a fan's perspective, all the scoring and the back and forth. But no, North Carolina fucking sucks. And the ACC sucks. They are who we thought they were.
Yeah, talk about a bad prediction. I had North Carolina as an upset for Notre Dame later on. That's a bad pick.
You also had Georgia picked as overrated. You had a bad weekend.
But fucking North Carolina, man. Woo.
And you're still trashing Stetson Bennett, who just had a great week, and you're still
right.
pitch.
Right.
Hey, no matter how many games he wins, his fucking name is Stetson. I'm not letting it go.
That's the mailman.
Was he the fourth? Like Stetson Bennett the fourth or some shit? Fuck off.
You can't knock a guy who's got a family name, and it's his fault. It's a family name.
I'm gonna.
Yeah, he did.
I'm gonna.
And also North Carolina. Yeah, that guy who returned that onside kick for a touchdown, I would cut his ass too.
For returning a touchdown.
Yes, for being a fucking idiot.
Hey,
not only did he return the touchdown, not only did he return the touchdown, they got an unsportsmanlike conduct on it, so they kicked off from their own 20.
Yeah. Hey, listen. I mean, maybe he thought his defense might be able to stop somebody at some point to do something. I don't really know.
Yeah, 60 points later.
Yeah, by that point, they already had scored 34 points in the fourth. He probably was like, no way, they scored 40.
Right. He's like, I think they hit their limit. I'm good.
Right. That's got to be a record, right?
No,
they were 1 point short of the record, is what they said.
What?
I mean, that's pathetic, man. I mean, that's really, really, really pathetic. They got to get shredded in the media, but they're not. They're not. If that was Tennessee, man, they'd still be talking about it. Tennessee sucks.
Shut the fuck up with all the Tennessee shit.
Shit, North Carolina
shut
ranked
the fuck
20.
up the Notre Dame shit. I think Notre Dame is still good. Ohio State, man, they're a powerhouse. They're a powerhouse. Come on, man. Ohio State is overrated. You know it. You know it. Anyway, so yeah, some nail biters in the ACC there by some unlikely foes, but they pulled them out. So good for them. Maybe they'll make a playoff run too. I think that's it for the week in review. I did do some booth reviews from our last episodes, and it was some pretty interesting things that I found out. So Earl had made it. So we're doing the booth review right now from previous episodes. The first one was that Earl said that Cincinnati had the third most draft picks in 2022. I thought that was bullshit. I took it to the booth, and he was correct. So he got that one right, since he had 9 draft picks in 2022, which was third, behind Georgia and somebody else. I don't remember the other team. Ed Orgeron, you asked me to take to a booth review. Did he hit on an administrator's wife? I said the president of the university. Doesn't indicate that it was the president. It does say that it was an administrator, a high up administrator's wife that he hit on at the gas station. And he did. There were quotes where she said she was coming from the gym, and he said, you look like you work out, or you want to go do another workout or something like that. And she said, I'm pregnant. He said, why does that matter? Or she said she was married and pregnant or something like that. And he said, what difference does that make, or something like that. So he's a colossal piece of shit.
I'm surprised she could even understand it. The dude needs subtitles.
He's a walking bowl of gumbo. Like,
yeah, he's an idiot. He just tried to go full on Deshaun on it at the gas station.
He's like, pregnant? Oh, who does that matter?
He said hello in Cajun. Hello. How does it sound if Ed Orgeron says hello with his dick hanging out? Hello.
It definitely his dick definitely has the same voice as him.
Right. He sounds like the Cookie Monster at that point. I think. Hello.
It's like fucking playing
Oh
in the
my
apes.
god. So Ed Orgeron is a piece of shit. That sums up that one. So I did take it to the review because you asked me to. The third one, so Nebraska, we talked about their Big Ten titles. I did take it to review. Nebraska joined the Big Ten in 2011. They have one appearance in the Big Ten title game. They lost 70 to 31. We had that one correct. And they have not been back since. And I don't blame them. They should never show their face there again. And they struggled in their game this weekend. I can't believe that Frost is still there. I mean, he's done a miserable job. He really needs to go.
I heard that his buyout depreciates significantly in like a month. So I think he's going to get fired.
You said that before, but the thing is, like, he restructures his deal to make the buyout easier or the payout easier if they fire him. Who gives a fuck? The dude sucks. I mean, you can't keep him because you're getting a break. You know what I mean? Oh, well, he comes in at discount. Well, yeah, he sucks. I mean,
they're not hiring a new coach, so in a month they can fire him for half the price.
They can do better with no coach. Holy shit. Let the players just play, man. Draw up some plays in the dirt. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. They are terrible. They are absolutely terrible. I don't even know what to say. It's so bad. But that was it for the reviews. We were pretty much dead on with everything that we had said. I didn't really find any mistakes. I don't know if there's anything to review from tonight's show. I think everything was pretty straightforward. You guys threw out a lot of really nice quotes. So score update, 2 minutes left till halftime. Florida State is still up 7-3.
Yeah, Florida State is on the 10-yard line trying to go in. LSU just muffed a punt. So they look very well coached.
Yeah, look at Brian Kelly looking confused as usual. And he's got that blue shirt on with the stripes going sideways. I don't know why you want to make yourself look bigger in that situation. It's not like you just came from the gym. Maybe he was there with Ed Orgeron. I don't know.
Maybe he's looking Maybe he's looking for an extra workout.
Oh my gosh. LSU, man, I tell you, they are committed to shitty coaches. It is incredible. But it's amazing that Les Miles, who's one of the worst coaches in history, got them a national title. They bring in Ed Orgeron, who's a piece of shit and a terrible coach, gets them a national title. It's incredible. It is incredible with these guys.
Maybe that's Brian Kelly's thinking is, if I'm a bad coach, this is the only place I could win.
That was pass interference right there. Either way, minute left till halftime. Okay, well, it looks like we're at a pretty good breaking point, so we won't be able to review the LSU game or the second half of it, so the LSU outcome or the Clemson Georgia Tech. I think Georgia Tech, I think that's going to be a rout. I mean, Clemson, I don't think it's going to be very good, but Georgia Tech is fucking awful. So I don't think there's going to be much to talk about anyway. But if Florida State pulls this game out, I think there's a fair amount to come back to when we do the next show, because Brian Kelly, I think the expectations are pretty high with the transfers he brought in and the talent that's already there.
Well, that's what I was going to say. To say what you want, LSU is loaded talent-wise.
Absolutely. So. And Florida State is not supposed to be very good. So if Florida State wins this game, wow, what a bad statement that is for Brian Kelly and his start in LSU. But, fuck him. So you guys got anything before we wrap up?
Yeah, go Irish. We're still going to be in a playoff this year.
I doubt it.
And fuck Kirk Herbstreit.
I'm on board with that.
Those are my closing thoughts.
Those are your closing thoughts?
Yep.
All right. That's a wrap. Till next time.